Here's a brief demo of the FlexBeat metronome app for Android devices. When the app first opens, you'll see New at the top of the screen and a blank area where you can create a metric pattern. To use the app as a traditional metronome, select a tempo using this bottom slider and adjust with the plus and minus buttons. And hit play. To hear subdivisions, turn this switch on. If the note on the tempo button here is a non-dotted note, such as a quarter or an eighth, you'll hear duple subdivisions. To hear triple subdivisions, tap the button and change the note type to any dotted note. You can also fine-tune the tempo here. To hear a repeated 5-4 pattern as 2 plus 3, for example, use these note buttons and enter a half note and a dotted half note. I want the half note pulse, so I'll change it here. And I'll turn off subdivisions and play. I'm going to clear this pattern. And now I'd like to create a metric pattern for this music excerpt you see on the left. The first measure has a 3/4 meter, so I'll enter 3/4 notes. I want to add a bar line now, but since there are two measures of 3/4, I'll use a shortcut and drag this slider to ×2, and then enter the bar line. Next there's a 5/8 bar, which is grouped 2 plus 3, so I'll enter quarter, dotted quarter. Next is a 3/8 bar, so I'll enter dotted quarter, and I'll finish the excerpt. The 5/8 is grouped 3 plus 2, and finally a 2/4. For longer patterns, this viewing area becomes scrollable. I'd like a quarter note for my tempo value, so I'll use the tempo button again. And I'll choose a tempo and play. You'll notice that my excerpt on the left begins at measure 15, so I'd like to renumber my measures. Tapping the first measure number brings up a page to enter a new starting bar number. I'll enter 15. Here I can also add some introductory measures, which play repetitions of the first measure before the excerpt begins. I'll choose 2 measures and exit. Now you'll see the new initial bar number and the intro clicks that precede it. For longer excerpts, you may want to begin playback somewhere in the middle. Select the measure where you'd like to start. And this time I'll turn subdivisions on. Deselect the measure to return to full playback. You can save this pattern to your device here and enter a title for it. You'll now see the new title on top. If I select My Patterns, the new item is listed, along with some other patterns I saved previously. You can swipe any title to the left and see options to delete, rename, or share your pattern with any other FlexBeat users. When you select Share, an email is created with a file attachment and a message with instructions on how the recipient can import the file onto their device. At the top of the list is the option to create a new pattern, as we saw earlier. But I'll open the pattern I just saved because I'd like to make a few changes. If you need to modify a pattern, tap on a measure and add or delete notes from the back. To delete an entire measure, tap Clear or use the back button until the measure is empty. You can then either retap the empty measure to delete it or select another measure for editing. Let's say I want to insert an extra measure at bar 19. I'll select the previous measure and then double tap it. That inserts a new measure where I can add some notes. You can then either save your changes or, to discard them, return to your pattern list and choose Discard. Further options and information can be found by selecting the menu options up here. On the Settings page, you can find your current FlexBeat version identifier, and below that, some options for changing click sounds. There are 3 click types, and you can set them to any combination. There's the initial start of the pattern, then there are main beats for each note, and then the optional subdivisions. I'll change the intro and start click to bongo. Below the click settings are some more options. The first one controls playback looping. Below that, you can choose your preset value for the subdivide switch for whenever you create a new pattern. Next is a user preference for allowing the app to continue playback when the app is not currently on the active screen. You may want to keep this option disabled, except for specific multitasking purposes. Below that is an option to hear the intro click sound at the start of each measure, as opposed to only hearing it at the start of the pattern. If your device has Bluetooth capability, you would see another option at the very bottom for selecting audio output. For example, an external Bluetooth speaker. Tapping this option would take you to your system's paired device list to select another output. Going back to menu options, we also have a user guide, which is a handy reference that describes all of the metronome's capabilities that I've shown here. Thanks for watching this demo of the FlexBeat Metronome app. I hope you'll enjoy using its many features.